I'm Thomas, and you're listening to the Gracing podcast, where this week we are going to talk about Migration Gravel, the gravel stage race that ended about a week ago in Kenya, where folks were racing for 4 stages through African landscapes. It is a list in a recent newsletter. I put it. That race is on my dream list of events. And that is in comparison to a bucket list where you put stuff that you actually are going to do, because of course it's aspirational to travel to Kenya to race with all the travel and the expense that is included in it. Nevertheless, from the footage that I saw and that is on Instagram, on YouTube and so on, it is a really amazing race. But I wanted to understand how it actually played out and unfolded. And as becomes a tradition over here, I managed to get the 2 winners, namely Hayley Hunter-Smith on the women's side and Lukas Baum on here to talk about their experience and their racing over at the Migration Gravel race. We also touch upon a few other things. We talk about the present state and the future of gravel as a spectator sport. We talk a bit about the role of the UCI, about innovation in gravel, and a few other exciting topics. With Hayley, I also talked a bit about her experience at SBT, Steamboat Gravel, which of course this year changed to a new format. So as you can probably see from the length of the episode, it is a packed one. And on that note, I will keep it brief here. Let's jump right into my conversation with Lukas. So now I'm joined by Lukas Baum, just relatively fresh still of winning this year's Migration Gravel. Lukas, nice to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to give a bit something back from my side.
I'm just so curious to learn more about the experience that you just had. I think it was your 3rd time, if I'm not wrong, at Migration Gravel, correct?
Yeah, I think I'm one of the only ones who's stupid enough to do it 3 times in a row. I started 3 years ago which was my first time. I came back the year after, and the year after I told myself I will never ever do it again. And yeah, here I am, a 3rd consecutive time. This time with a win, but I'm sure this was the last time for me. Yeah, the first time I won, and last year I had a bit of a mishap in the first stage. There's something super special in Kenya. They call it black cotton. So when there's a lot of rainfall and a certain type of mud there, creates like a super sticky. Maybe some gravel racers are familiar with the peanut butter in the US, mm-hmm. and similar to this to that peanut butter mud, there's a special black mud in Kenya, which is super super sticky, the most stickiest mud I've ever seen, and that clogged my front wheel and back wheel on the first stage last year. And I had to walk for like an hour and then clean my bike constantly. So that prevented me from winning last year. But participated 3 times and won 2 times.
Nice. So as you are super well versed at the race, it makes it for an even more interesting conversation. And what I would like to know is, before we get to arriving in Kenya and the race itself, how did you prepare for the race, especially as you knew kind of what to expect? But doing a stage race definitely is different from a one-day race. Of course, you're experienced at both formats. So what kind of preparation do you do in terms of, let's start with training maybe? What type of race is that in your calendar? Is it like a priority for you? Is it more a fun getaway?
For me, since the first time I've done that race, I took it always as like a high altitude training block. I didn't specifically train for this race. I think it's even hard to train for this race because you should have, or to fully prepare for those conditions, you have to spend a lot of time in altitude and racing there, and the harsh conditions is super hard to replicate here in Europe. Just because of the circumstances there in Kenya. So for me, it was always like a special time of the year where I took some time off, let's say, the serious racing, and have some fun, look over the horizon, see something different, and enjoy the time in Kenya, and then have a real African experience. So training wise, I didn't specifically train for that. I took it more as a preparation for what's to come still on the season, and I always respond super good to the time there being in altitude. You have to remember that Kenya, even Nairobi, is already in altitude. I think 1,700, about 1,700 meters above altitude, above sea level. And then Lake Naivasha, the World Gravel Series, right before the migration race at Lake Naivasha, is also at 1,900 and goes up to 2,300. Migration itself never goes below 2,000. So it's a special kind of racing where you will never fully recover if you go super deep into the red. Muscular wise, it's maybe not the most impact you can get on your body, but the overall stress load combined with the terrain, with the heat, and with the altitude makes it super tough.
What are the temperatures out there?
The temperatures are not crazy high. We're not talking about 40 plus degrees. It's mostly somewhere between 30 and 40, depending on the time of the day and if it's cloudy or not. And on top of that, it's a dry, pleasant heat because of the altitude. You won't experience any high humid heat. If you're riding right under the sun, you definitely feel that you're close to the equator, and the sun is super high, so you can feel the sun burning on your back. The heat is definitely something you have to consider and you have to get used to.
And just for our US listeners who don't use the superior metric system, we are talking about 6,500 something feet and above is where the migration gravel race happens. So it's a proper altitude by European standards. I guess in the US you get even higher in some places, but yeah, it's altitude for real.
Yeah, for us, it's definitely. I'm also not super familiar with the less superior imperial system, but it's you climb between 6,000 and 9,000 feet. I think that's like the range you're climbing in. There's one stage where you do like almost a 3,000 feet in one go. And towards you can definitely watch your heart rate going consistently up, and the wattage, the output goes consistently lower. Yeah, it's definitely something extreme. So yeah, and extreme in any way. But back to your question, I didn't fully prepare. I used this as a training block.
Makes sense. And then before we get into bike gear, maybe a quick aside on nutrition. So for a stage race like this, do you pack like just all gels and drink mix, or is there anything special that you plan besides like the food that you get from the organizers outside of the race? Do you take like whatever electrolytes, caffeine?
Yeah, maybe I'm the wrong person to talk about super high detail nutrition, because I'm one of the old school guys. I couldn't even tell you how many grams of carbs I have in my bottles, and I'm definitely running on the lower side, I think. And no, I'm not relying on anyone else outside the race or even the organizers. You only find some watermelon and some fruits and maybe some salty snacks on the long stages. We have 2 feed zones. Maybe on the shorter stages, in quotes, we only have 1. So what you take on your bike with you should be enough for the whole stage. You can refill your bottles at the feed stations, but only with pure water. And what I did, I always started with 2 1-liter bottles, because I absolutely hate riding with a camelback or with a bladder. So I started with one big liter bottles and hoped that I didn't lose them in the downhills. And for me, 2 liters from the start to the first feed zone was enough to fill it up. Yeah, and then packing enough gels. Of course, I aim for roughly about somewhere between 60 and 80 grams of carbs an hour. That's my overall plan. But like I said, if you lose a bottle, if you're running low on water, then the whole plan goes to shit, and you have to adapt and overcome. So that you can only plan so much, because you have to basically, and that's the theme maybe of the whole race. You have to accept that things will go wrong, and you have to find the best way or the best solution right on the spot.
So how much before do you arrive in Kenya? I think you also did race the UCI race they put there. I think it was called Safari Gravel. You podiumed this one, right? So you've been there a few days early already. When did you arrive?
So the Safari Gravel was on Saturday, and I arrived on Tuesday night. So let's say 4 days before, which is not 100% optimal. I mean, it's still up to debate which is the right time to arrive. Either super short before the race in altitude, or let's say a week. Yeah, because Safari is already at Lake Naivasha. It's at altitude around 1,900 meters, but it climbs up to 2,300. So it's definitely an altitude race.
And don't you live in Andorra? I thought you live in Andorra.
Yeah, I live in Andorra. I could. This my I'm sitting here underneath the roof, and I would like to show you Andorra, but out of the roof window here. But it's hard with a laptop. I'll show you later. But
anyways,
I don't live that high.
See it? Okay, so you're down.
I'm living at 1,300, but I'm training in altitude if the weather allows it to. So I'm not living crazy high, and I'm definitely sensitive to altitude, and even the 1,300, I'm sleeping here. If I'm out for a long block of racing, and I'm coming back and sleeping here, I can definitely feel that I have to adjust again, even to 1,300. So the best time to arrive would be maybe a week or a week and a half before, like I did last year. Last year I've been to Eton, the home of champions, where all the runners train in Kenya. So I did a whole week there before going down to Naivasha and do the Safari Gravel. So that was a better preparation for me, and in my opinion. This year was a bit shorter, so I was struggling a bit with the high efforts, or with the deep efforts during the UCI race. And but it was a good leg opener. Nevertheless, I became third. I lost in the sprint against Lukas, another a Belgian guy that didn't have the legs anymore, which I maybe would have had if I arrived a bit earlier.
Mm-hmm. And then after Safari Gravel, I assume there are already a lot of the racers, the migration gravel contenders in town. What is the vibe and in the days leading into the race? Is there a lot of reconning the thing together with other folks from the start list?
The organizer of migration, they also sell the complete package of doing the Safari Gravel beforehand. And then having a transfer from Safari to migration, and because of the logistics, or they're basically in different places. So from Safari Gravel you have to travel. This year was a bit shorter, but usually between 5 and 8 hours to migration.
Wow!
And you sleep after Safari Gravel. You have to, you basically sleep another night or have another recovery ride the day after, where Safari Gravel is held. And then on Mondays you travel to the migration. If you're arriving early, you have enough time to spin the legs a bit, or if the weather is shit, or if the roads are blocked, or whatever, for whatever reason it takes a bit longer, then you just arrive at night, and you prepare yourself for the next day, and then on Tuesday you start migration. So there's not a lot of reconning going on, just because also the route is so rural and so wild. You're going through a lot of nature reserves and private land. You can't even recon the track that much. And yeah, even if you could, maybe it's not the safest idea.
And I mean, that question, anyways, only matters to people who've been there before. But the course, does it change from year to year, or is it similar? How much of the terrain that you encountered this year have you ridden before?
It's quite similar. It's in the same neighborhood. The first 2 years I did the migration was more or less the same, pretty much the same, I would say. But there was a lot of flooding last year going on, so a lot of tracks were destroyed. And yeah, I gave also the feedback to the organizers. It was not a pleasant ride anymore, and a lot of roads were just unrideable, and they had to make their way around certain areas and find new tracks. So this year it was more, yeah, it was a pleasant ride. It was, in my opinion, still not a gravel race, more like a mountain bike race. But maybe that's another question. And yeah, the area stays roughly the same, but you ride so many kilometers, you will recognize certain parts. But this year was a new migration course, I would say.
So as you already mentioned to it, like the last section of preparation we ended up not talking about, but what was your chosen bike setup for the migration?
Yeah, this year I was fortunate enough to be part of the OLAP program of Aubert. They released right after migration the 2 new Terras, one Terra normal and one Terra race. And I was using
These are their gravel
the
bikes.
Alkönig, exactly, gravel bikes, yeah. Their prototypes I was racing in Unbound already, and I took the same bike to migration. Mm-hmm. And I was fitting modified Thunderbirds 2.1 or 54s in there. I clipped off all the side knobs to get the maximum volume inside the frame. Last year I was using also the 54 Thunderbirds. So that was the tire of my choice, and then together with a SRAM Red Explore group, it was the perfect setup for me.
But no suspension besides what the tires give you?
No.
Okay. Did you consider it?
All the suspension, all the comfort. I would like to, but I haven't had that talk with our sponsors, and I think I was a bit restricted there with the choice of what I could fit. But I think in the future, or I hope in the future, for those type of races, or for those, let's say, extreme off-road gravel races, or extreme minimalist marathon mountain bike races, which is kind of the same, they will find a solution or an overlap of usage of let's say a hardtail and a gravel bike. So a bike with maybe the comfort of a hardtail mountain bike and a nice fork, but a drop bars. I think that's the way to go. But I want to keep the industry, or I want the industry to have another reason to sell bikes in the future. So I'm not spoiling anyone now with the plans.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're pretty much spot on. I don't know how closely you're following the discussions or even the research and study of what is the perfect gravel or the perfect setup on certain types of gravel, let's say unbound and more rough than unbound as a metric. So sometimes they call it Cat 3 gravel. There are different wordings out there. And like the most interesting recent development, as a quick aside, but also relevant to migration actually, is a study that a racer from the US, Hannah Shell, she did with a guy, I think he's called Mark Graveline, and he talked about it in the Performance Process podcast, which is one of the Escape Collective podcasts. And they did pretty thorough outside testing, and they found out probably surprisingly to some, I guess to mountain bikers like yourself, not really surprisingly, that like the gravel bike with a rigid fork and the mountain bike 2.25 tires is the second fastest option. And the fastest option on unbound like gravel that they tested was actually a suspension fork plus a 45 mil gravel tire. So the dampening, the vibration losses are then handled by the fork, and the tire can be a faster rolling, aerodynamically more optimal tire on this type of terrain. Which then also looking at unbound, I mean, Keegan Swenson, for instance, he just last second opted for a rigid fork. His bike was set up with a suspension ahead of time. And I think we are definitely moving into the gravel, suspension gravel at the top end of the races, of some races, right? If you do like a flat Belgium gravel race, maybe you will never opt for a suspension fork. But at certain stuff, people do.
No, I totally agree. As soon as there's as soon as the terrain is rougher than the Champagne gravel or the Belgian cycle path gravel, you're dealing with so much stress which comes from the ground onto your bike, onto your body, that a suspension makes more and more sense. And the less fatigue or the less stress you put on your body or on the bike, the more efficient the ride is. It's simple. I mean, we also in mountain biking we're using full suspension for a reason. Not only because of the downhills, but also on the trails. You're saving so much energy just rolling over stuff without the bike having to absorb all the impact from below and your back and your arms.
Yeah.
Of course, and in gravel, when there's a certain type of speed also involved, aerodynamics come into play. It definitely makes sense to me, and letting the tire handle all that stress alone is a bit silly. So getting something else on your bike which can absorb stress is definitely helpful, and I would like to be part of that in the future. And I would like to test it. I haven't had the chance yet. But I saw Haley. I mean, maybe you can ask Haley how it was with their Super Caliber. She was riding basically a full suspension mountain bike.
Full suspension Franken bike with like drop bars. It's definitely on my to talk about list with Haley because it looked. Purists will probably complain a lot, but to me it looked like a pretty interesting setup.
Yeah, but that's maybe that's the whole point. Even for me, maybe as an arrogant mountain biker, I always question myself: why would you choose a less capable bike for the job? Do you do it out of the purist perspective, what you were mentioning, like the cyclocross guys? Because the cyclocross guys are always basically they're agreeing on, okay, we're using a shitty bike with the least capable bike for the job. But the UCI, the rules are the rules, and we have to deal with it. And therefore, maybe more skill is involved, or it's another type of racing. It's like saying to Formula One.
Design.
Yeah, exactly. It's like saying when the Formula One says, "Okay, we're going back to V12s, no active suspension, no electronics," and that's what we're racing. Maybe NASCAR is that's in a certain way, but if you want to keep evolving and keep innovating, gravel bikes as they entered the market in the beginning never ever made sense to me. But I'm happy to see that more innovation and more battles which were already fought on the mountain biking front are now overcome or just accepted on the gravel bike scene as well. It just maybe the optics are a bit weird. Maybe that's why the guys on the gravel bike which come from road cycling, they have a bit of a problem because the road cyclists are always more conservative and more slow adapting to innovation. But the mountain bikers, they're pushing from the other side.
I think they love gear more. or not even gear, but they are just more open to running new stuff and making this. And I mean, there are all these jokes out there that people say, look, gravel is just experiencing what a mountain bike did like in the 90s, and they are making the same discoveries that like mountain bikers did. And then of course, it's also impacted by the type of races that are out there, right? Like I think at the time, if we talk about 90s, I'm not a huge mountain bike literate guy, but I assume from what I read that the mountain biking races of base, essentially all formats became more and more technical over time. So what was happening in the 90s is probably more akin to what a technical gravel race is nowadays. And then the OG US type of gravel racing, which can't even be replicated anywhere else because you need the type of roads that you mostly find in the States. That probably calls for fast gravel bikes because it's not usually single traily and super technical. But that's that's also the fun part about gravel, or probably let's just talk about off-road racing, that the spectrum is so wide and there is not like a one perfect solution for all the races out there, but you really need to tinker with the setup and pick the right stuff for the course. So let's bring it back to migration gravel. So you ran the new Terra,
you 100%
with the widest
on,
wheels,
by the way.
yeah. You ran the widest tires possible that you could fit in your bike, but you wouldn't have minded to take a suspension option if you had one at hand for the race as well. So that's the type of terrain, rather technical, right?
Yeah, and not at all. I would have, if I had in quotes free choice, I would have ridden my OIS, actually, my full suspension mountain bike, either with the drop bar or with we have a new special handlebar for like a one-piece carbon handlebar for the mountain bike, which has an aero grip in the middle, like, similar to the time trial handlebars, nice. Or the handlebars they rode in the 90s in the Tour de France, with the clip-on
aero bars.
But we got that made from Bike Ahead as a one-piece carbon handlebar. So you have a mountain bike handlebar with an aero adaptation in the middle.
Nice. Can people find this, or is it like custom made for you guys?
It was a custom made thing for the Cape Epic. Then they came out with their own rule book and basically forbid us to use it, but it's now available to buy. Yeah.
Lovely. So if there is a link, don't hesitate to send me a link afterwards, and then I can put it in the show notes. I mean, that sounds like
I send it to you.
So migration, the days leading into it, we already talked about. Give the people maybe a quick overview about the stages. So there are 4 stages. I think they are all in the 4 to 5 hour realm, right? I think you finished overall within like 19 hours something as the winner.
There was they shortened the last stage from 100 around 190 to 140. So the last stage was a bit shorter, and the longest stage was 6 hours. So I would say, depending on the also the weather conditions, if it's raining, the track gets a lot slower. So anywhere between 4 and 6.5, 7 hours for the winners, or for the men winners, and then for the amateurs and for the women, you have to add another hour, an hour and a half. So I think on average, people took anywhere between 5 and 6 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, if a normie like me goes, they're probably even longer.
Yeah, I mean, a huge respect to the in quotes normal guys, or the amateur riders, which took from dusk till dawn. So it was insane. Sometimes I saw them at breakfast, and we all started together, and they came in, me after having dinner already, and at prize giving, there were people still coming into the finish. So we start at 7 or at 8, and they come into the finish at 6 and 6:30. So they took 10 hours. They've been 10 hours out there. It's insane.
Wow.
And they finished at a huge respect. Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, so stage 1, you win. how is it going out there? I mean, what? By the way, for people who want to see some of the stuff, so the race is organized by Team Armani, which is also racing. They do a lot for African cycling, actually. And they put out a film which you can find on their YouTube, or 4 films recaps of all the stages that you can find on their YouTube channel. So that gives you a decent idea of what the stages were like, but of course it doesn't show all the action. It shows, and we will get there, some controversy and team tactic stuff that probably made you not so happy, especially I think after stage 2. But let's start with stage 1. How is it going? You're kicking off stage 1. You feel good?
So stage 1 was like the last year's a super fast and relatively flat stage with open terrain and a lot of wind. So we had, I think, average 32 or 34 average stage gravel. That says a lot how fast it is. And yeah, we're starting all together. The field was stacked this year. There were a lot of Armani riders, like you said, but also the Black Mambas, which is their development program. Mm-hmm. And they really stepped up their game, and they created some talent up there in Eton. And they can definitely ride their bikes. It's not just you're coming to Kenya and you think, the privileged European can just win there for free. You definitely have to work hard there, and they improved each year. And this year was apparent that they really improved their skills and also their the legs and the condition, so they could hang on for a long time.
How many starters are there in like the pro man's field, roughly?
More roughly, I would say around 50, maybe 50 in total.
Nice.
So internationals, of course, a lot of Kenyans, but also internationals. Mm-hmm. And it was quite fast. I tried to split the group right from the beginning, because you're carrying with so many Black Mambas. That's how they're called, and Team Armani guys. And with a lot of crosswinds, you have the chance to really split the group right from the beginning. And Hans Becking and I, we tried our best and got away, and just rode together to the finish line. It was not quite. It was not super tactical. It was just like keeping up the pace right from the start, and on certain sections where the wind allows, or where the wind is coming from the right angle, you put everyone into the gutter and everyone to the sword, and at one point the elastic snapped and we got away, and they couldn't close the gap, and that's where we were both able to get away from the group and extend our lead and crossing the finish line together. And then we crossed the finish line hand in hand. It was not planned who crossed first. Mm-hmm.
So any controversy after stage 1? Not really.
No, not really. It was upfront racing.
So what is the camp experience then for you guys? Like, is everybody in the camp? Are some people like? Is there even the option to Airbnb as an alternative during the race, or do all pro guys stay in the tents that you can see in the documentary?
No,
I saw you in a tent, so I assume you went it.
Yeah, no, everyone is in a tent. This year there were basically 3 different camps. No, 2 different camps. And on the first camp we had like, I would say, a luxury tent option, which is like a giant, a giant tent, but with 2 solid beds in there. And I shared the tent with Laurens Nasen. Which is a nice, the closest you can get to a normal bed in the middle of the bush, but still there's no running water, there's no electricity in the tent, there's no proper showers, so it's a camp in the middle of the bushes. You hear the elephants and the hyenas screaming at night. You see the wildlife running around there. It's definitely super remote, and something special, and something you will or if you survive a night, or if you sleep a night in the zoo in Europe, then maybe it's the closest thing you can get to a camp in Kenya.
I mean, look, there are definitely guys who are scared outside at night, even in Germany. So if you're that, probably don't go to Migration Gravel. because that sounds different level of noises in the night.
Yeah. The good thing is you're so fucked after the race that you probably sleep good
Anyway.
or not at all. Yeah. No, but the tribal people there, they have an agreement with the organizers. They support us during the race. They're riding on motos, but also they keep the animals away at night. They put some fires around the camp, and maybe the animals are scared of fires. I don't know. I haven't spoken to them, but there was no big incident of animals running through the camp.
So one thing that I'm super curious about still at the camp is like the food and how the catering works. And is it like local food from Kenya that you get to experience there? Is it like well done enough? Curious about these details.
Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask for that, because I arranged my own food. We had an own driver, and we had a car with us, and we had a gas cooker. I was cooking myself for us, so I boiled it down to, or I restricted myself to just plain rice in the evening and oats in the morning, overnight oats.
Okay.
So we were independent. But what I can tell you is, you have to think about the catering is done by the locals there, or by the organizers, and they have to feed the whole camp in the middle of nowhere with no electricity.
Exactly.
And the electricity is coming from a generator.
That's challenging.
Which can also, which can break down or run out of fuel, or trucks can be stuck with the food on the way to the camp. So things which are normal in Africa, but maybe after the race you want some. You want to guarantee your nutrition, and you want to have the food early. And if you want to be independent, just take your own stuff, take your cooker or a gas cooker, and cook it for yourself. But and things like hygiene in the camp is also an issue. I mean, from Cape Epic as well. If you want to be super, super safe, do it on your own. Like with everything in your life, just be the least dependent on other people. But I also talked to amateurs, and they were happy with the food they got there. It's rice and beans. It's just basic things. And in the morning, some toast and porridge. So they provide everything you need. But if there's, I mean, from my perspective, there's more on the line than just competing. And for the experience, I want to win the race, and there's bonuses involved, and there's a race to be won. And I've done it from day one, or from the first time I've done the race. I've done it with a driver and with my own gas cooker, and I cooked for myself for the whole race. So I kept that concept the last 2 years and this year as well. So and even Armani copied now my approach to the race, and they have their own cook as well.
Yeah. Okay. But that's interesting. And still, you would opt for mostly pure carbs if you say plain rice and oatmeals for like a 4-day stage race. Because just nutritionally, at some point, probably you need some of the other stuff as well. But no, in your case, you can handle it.
Yeah. The thing is, there's no other storage option. So you have to, there's no option to, there's no supermarket nearby. You're basically in the middle of nowhere. Everything you take into the bush, you have to eat, and you have to store properly. So there's no fridge you can access, or you can store things in, vegetables or whatever.
Rice with protein powder.
That was the only thing. I had a one protein shake as well. I forgot to mention that, but that's basically it. You want to keep it as simple as possible. Yeah. You cannot, I mean, all the water you take in there as well, you have to wash things. You have to, I mean, maybe not most environmentally friendly, but we used like one-time use plates, and so we shouldn't, or we couldn't wash them properly because there's no running water. Just things like that.
I mean,
you have to keep.
You're in the bush.
Yeah, you're in the bush. There's it's not the Airbnb in Italy or in France, where the spa or the Aldi is around the corner. Everything you take into the bush, you have to take out of the bush again. So keep that in mind.
So as you explained, you won stage 1 ahead of Hans Becking. Now we get into stage 2, which, let's call it the controversial stage, where some team tactics were happening. What unfolded?
I think the media, or they like to create more drama out of it than it actually was. Just the overview of the stage. It was a super flat run into the long climb. It used to be the Queen stage, and it was like 80Ks flat. Then it was a 25-30K climb up to the highest point of the whole race, and then a long downhill, and then another 30 flat. So I think in total it was 160 or 100. I can't remember, 170 Ks maybe. And maybe the Team Armani and the Black Mambas, they took it a bit personally that we tried to split the group on the first stage that early. And they decided not to do any work in the group at all. So from the start on, they were not leading, not pushing, and not doing any turns in the group. Of course, we try to keep the pace high and keep the group going, but at some point, if you're pulling with you like 30 guys which just sit on the wheel,
is there a break of guys ahead at this point in time?
No, there was no break ahead. No, it was at that point we just tried to keep the pace high and keep the group going, because honestly, like, we have still 6 hours of racing and playing like tactics, and after the first half an hour, it's a bit that was a bit frustrating, and that I think that was the beginning of the whole frustration with the riding style of Team Armani and the Black Mambas. But on the other side, maybe they just got the memo or got the advice: just sit on the wheel and try to survive the day. But if you start to play that game already like 20 minutes into a 6-hour race, that's a bit annoying. And then I also just want to go home. Like, if we would have continued the way we were riding at that point, it would have taken us like 10 hours. Even the amateurs caught up with us.
On the mountain bike, what is your best discipline?
Wow, it's hard to say.
Is it marathon?
Yeah, it's there's two different kind of mountain bike races. One is marathon, one is Olympic, cross country Olympic, and I'm definitely the more endurance orientated guy. I mean, I had some good years as a junior in the cross country Olympic race, but cross country Olympic is limited to 1.5 hours, and marathon is more like the longer distances, anywhere between 3 and let's say 5 hours.
Okay, so these races go up to 5 hours, because I thought they are more in the 4-hour realm usually. But okay,
no.
So it's not, these races there are not something that are like an unusual distance for you.
No, it's not totally out of the realm of possibilities, but it's more rare. Like the 5.5 hours. I only know the last 4 Cape Epics I did, maybe 3 stages were more than 5 hours. So that's a rarity, but it can happen. Whereas maybe on gravel racing, it's more the norm that they go anywhere like plus minus 5 hours.
Yeah, especially like the gravel earth and US style.
Yeah,
CI is shorter.
But there comes also into play that the marathon racing is all out from the beginning. There's no tactics involved, or less tactics involved, because there's less drafting, because the speed is lower and the trail or the terrain and the track is more technical.
Yeah,
it comes down to more raw power, and you can if you ride consistently a high pace, you can just make them break even on the wheel, or you cannot benefit on slipstream that much in the trails.
So going back to stage 2 of migration, you actually wanted to be ideally a hard ride all day long.
Exactly. Yeah, I just didn't like the idea of just freewheeling into the long climb for like 85 Ks, which would have taken us 4 hours or whatever. And at some point, we were attacking each other, and but then no one was happy with the group, and as soon as they were caught up on the wheel, we stopped pedaling. It was freewheeling, and and then the frustration kicked in, and and then at some point the climb started, and they attacked us, and we couldn't really follow them, because they were, of course, they're also, and that's another thing, it's not like their only chance is just to sit on the wheels. They have good legs as well, and they dropped us on the climb, so they definitely have the leg to close the gaps we create attacking on the flats. And if they have the legs to close those gaps, then they could also, in my opinion, work with us on the flats to stay away in the breakaway, not just to let everything roll back together. And I don't know what they expected from us, to just give them a free ride to the to the climb and then attack us there. But yeah, that was where the frustration and the drama was born.
And give us a better idea of what your like not team setup, but team setup out there is, because like you race, and I want to at the end talk about this briefly as well, but you have essentially your own team, Speed Company Racing, but Georg Egger wasn't there. I think he's injured at the time being. But you were there. You already mentioned Hans Becking. I don't know what your relationship is, but it seemed to be a good one, and you kind of cooperated, because obviously you are out there, formally speaking, on your own against all of Team Amani plus Black Mamba, but you have a few guys that you cooperate with.
Exactly. Hans Becking is another fellow mountain bike racer. I did the Epic with him and all the other mountain bike World Cups or mountain bike races. I know him for years. And he was part of the gravel group, travel group. So it was Laurens Nasen, Svenja Betz was also part of the group, and Hans. And just because I did the race so many times before, they trusted me with the logistics and and the bookings. There was another amateur also with us in the group. It was just us as a travel group. Of course, we're not wearing the same jersey, and in the end, we're also competitors, but we're traveling together. So there's no real team connection. We're not wearing the same jersey. We're not riding for the same brands. But yeah, as a group of friends, of course, we're helping each other out, and we're not marking us that well. But there was definitely no team tactic. Like in the end of the day, we didn't sit together and say, okay, what is the best strategy for us all together, or we didn't choose me as the leader. It's more like a kind of like in the pro field on the road, where maybe you don't choose you don't chase your best friend down if he's in the breakaway type of deal. But the more tactics the more tactics Team Amani and the Mambas brought into the game. Of course, the more tactical also we were racing. But yeah, unfortunately, my partner Georg was injured with a vertebrae issue. But usually we are riding together as a couple, as a team of Obea Speed Company. We founded that after our win, or even before the win in Cape Epic 2022, and since then we've been growing and been competing as a couple and individuals for those years in mountain biking and gravel racing.
So stage 3 comes, and it's a stage you win as well. How did day 3 go?
Stage 3 was the new Queen stage with the most meters of climbing. I think 2,700 or 2,800 meters of climbing. Mm-hmm. For the Americans, like 6,000 feet, I think, or between 5,000 and 6,000 feet, and 180 Ks or 170 Ks, a long stage with a lot of climbing, as I said, a lot of changing terrains and also a lot of trails on that course. And that helped me a lot. I mean, if the terrain is selective enough, the less tactics are involved and the more raw power you have to just put down to split the group, and that's how it goes, or how it went. We kept the pace high together with Lachlan was also there in the group, and then at some point, even before a long climb, I got away alone. They caught us back, or they caught me back in the group, and then it was just four of us. It was just Jordan, Lachlan, Hans, and me. yeah, at some point we lost Lachlan somewhere. I think he had a flat or something. And but during the whole time we were away. There's another thing. Jordan didn't do one turn in the front. After the frustration the day before, it was another fuel into the fire. It was not even that he's that he didn't do as much work as we all in the group. We were in the breakaway at that point, but he didn't lead one minute. And then towards the end of that stage, we attacked, or we tried to get away from him, because then there was a similar situation on day one where I was with Hans and Jordan in the breakaway, and then at some point Hans attacked and he got away because Jordan didn't want to chase, and then I attacked Jordan and caught up with Hans, and we were together, like us two together in the break, and could just ride it home. And we tried to
Jordan at this point, he is, I assume he's like second or third in the GC.
Yeah, third in GC.
Right?
He was third in GC.
I mean, to be fair, probably if I'd be his coach, DS or whatever, I would probably also tell him, look, if you're away with these guys, don't pull with them.
Yeah, I mean,
because you're the underdog.
Yeah, sure, but
you're out there.
I mean, just it was, once again, it was like, I don't expect him to pull or the same way as we do, but not one bit, like not keep the group going, but being in front and then actually start pedaling and then break the group speed. It was just, that's not how I race, and that got some frustration. And then at some point we decided also to get rid of him. But it's actually hard in the climb to get rid of him, because he's a super light climber, and he does well at those climbs, and he has some amazing legs, and he's used to the conditions, so he has an advantage from his perspective. And he didn't make any moves on us, so I mean, from his perspective, he also has to make up some time against us. Because he's on third, but he didn't do that either. So he was just following, and we carrying that weight with him with us. So we tried to get rid of him. We attacked him. First Hans, and I tried to jump again to Hans, but Jordan managed to get back, and then I attacked, and he didn't want to follow. So he didn't basically stop pedaling and was relying on Hans, and said, okay, if you're not leading or if you're not chasing, then I'm not chasing. And that's how I got away. And basically, Jordan gifted me the win, to his own detriment, I think, because they basically freewheeled for like 10 minutes, and Lachlan joined them again, and Lachlan was carrying them all the way to the finish, and that's how I got another, 5 minutes in the finish in the end. And that was also the stage where I crashed in the finish line, where it started raining in the end.
A Mimi moment.
Yeah, maybe also to my own detriment. I cut off the side knobs of the tire, and it was raining at that moment, and that, like I told you, that slick mud, it gets so slippery as soon as you hit some water on it, which it rarely does there. And after 6 hours of racing, I was just out of it. I had enough. I just wanted to go to the finish, and then the last corner I crashed.
And I mean, when I saw like the clip on Instagram of that scene, there is a moment you get up and then you make a weird movement with your hip. So I assumed for a second maybe you even hurt your hip. It was painful. No, it was not just.
It was
fun.
painful. It was painful, and what people didn't know, I crashed before. At one time, we were in the breakaway with together, and I looked back and I hung up on Jordan's wheel, so I crashed on my hip before. So and then on the same side. That's why it was it was a bit painful walking there.
Yeah, okay, I get it. But still, you managed to get away with the victory. You heard, I assume you have all your rice and your protein shake at night. What is your mindset going into stage 4? I don't know how many minutes your gap is after stage 3, but it's like fairly sizable if you look at it by road standards. But then in conditions out there, essentially no gap is big enough, right? You can never be relaxed and think I've got this.
No, I had 7 minutes, I think, on Hans Becking. I had seven on him, and then 10 minutes on Jordan, or 5 on Hans and 7 on Jordan. But nevertheless, even if it's 15 minutes, if you have a major mechanical with your tire or with your chain or with your derailleur, then it's gone. So
yeah,
you have to ride super cautious. Anything can happen in the bush, and if it does so, it's up to you to fix it. You cannot hold up your hand and a DS or the support car appears and gives you a wheel.
I mean, you can hold up your hand, just nobody's coming for you.
Exactly, you can hold up both, but no one will appear. So it's definitely something you have to consider. And for me, the motto was just don't fuck it up and ride it home safely. Yeah, and luckily for me, they also shortened the stage because the night before it was raining a lot, and they were supposed to take us up to another climb, which had a downhill afterwards, and because of safety reasons, they shortened the stage from 190 something to 140. So and without any real climbing, it was just a fast 140.
I mean, really, nobody can be too disappointed about this on the 4th day, I assume.
No way, no. I also gave the feedback to the organizers. I think in overall, for one-day races, I'm totally fine with 190 Ks or 170 Ks, but having that long stages consecutive after each other is just a bit too much. If you want to have some interesting racing, I mean, road cycling as well, shorten the stages over the years from the tour, and from a media product perspective, nobody will watch 7 hours of racing. Nobody gives a shit. And also for just for the logistics, and I mean, you're going to kill yourself after a while. I mean, do you want to do 5, 7, 8 ultras in a row? I mean, at one point, it's not racing anymore. It's just survival.
Yeah. Which also is maybe a format, but
but super niche. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so in the end, you cross the line, you win GC. So congratulations. That was I think you wanted the second win at Migration, right? That was still
100%.
The goal coming in there.
That was my goal. That was my big goal. I wanted to have some redemption after last year, where I had a mechanical in the beginning and a major mechanical in the end, where I could not finish the race of 10 Ks to go. So yeah, this was a nice ending, or a happy ending to my Kenya program.
Now, you already mentioned a few times the Cape Epic, and that is a race I assume many of our listeners are also familiar with, even though it's a mountain bike race. But I'm curious how the two compare, because we have seen a lot of pictures from Cape Epic, because it's super well produced as a race from a media perspective, and Cape Epic is, I think, making strides. The team is trying to really tell the story, but of course it's my assumption from just as a spectator and watching YouTube videos, it's by far not as produced and refined as Cape Epic is. But I'm curious to hear from you. Like, on the one hand side, okay, there is the race that is very different. It's a different genre, but more from like the organization, the vibe. How does it differ, the two of them?
No, it's two. The only similarity is that there's stage races in Africa, but they're two totally different experiences. Like you mentioned, the Cape Epic is like the best produced race out there, I would say, apart from Tour de France or the major Grand Tours on the road. But everything off-road, the Cape Epic is the benchmark when it comes to media, when it comes to the attention for pro riders, when it comes to a product, which is the bike race itself. It's like the best out there. And the experience I had from both races is super is different, but pleasant in the each way. If I want to have if I want to be super well taken care of, and if I want to race in the Western Cape, where where you're riding around Stellenbosch and the Stellenbosch bubble, where there's a nice coffee shop on every corner. You have the best meat, the best food, the best weather, the nicest built trails, and super manicured mountain bike experience. You go to South Africa, which was the benchmark. But if you want to have a raw off-road experience in Africa, and you want to live in the bush, you want to hear the hyenas scream, you want to ride past giraffes, you have to even slow down sometimes because there's wildlife crossing the road with zebras and giraffes and wildebeest. You go to Kenya, and people are, you make the comparison, but I hear the comparison super often, and people ask me, what's harder? And I definitely have to say, migration is harder, even if it's 4 days, just 4 days and not 8 days. But the terrain is way harder. It's tougher on your body, and like I said, they say it's a gravel race, but it's. I would do it with a mountain bike. The mountain bike is the more optimal bike for this race. I mean, you will talk to Haley. I'm curious what she will say, if she can ever imagine doing that race with a gravel bike. I don't think so, but yeah, it's just a crazy the amount of stress you will get on those 4 days on your body and on the bike is maybe equivalent to 8 days of racing in South Africa.
Are there any rules from the organizer regarding the bike setup? Is there like you need a drop bar, you can't have flat bars? No. So if you wanted, you could just bring a mountain bike.
No, I guess that's
would let you
the spirit of gravel that that you're using a mountain bike in the end. No, there's no rules similar to the it's like the Wild West, similar to the UCI gravel races. I think there's also no real rule enforcement.
Yeah,
I guess there are some rules written down, but there's no one enforcing those rules. You can do whatever.
I mean,
you can bring whatever.
I'm so happy that we're in this state in gravel. I mean, if you contrast it with what is currently happening on the road front, where now chain gear restrictions are being tested and you have all these handlebars limits and so on, which I mean, it's so regulated. If I would be a manufacturer of bikes or bike components, I would currently be potentially mega pissed at the UCI and just the whole spirit of what is happening there in road racing. And then you look at gravel, which I assume is also why people in the industry like it so much, because it's at this point in time, they can do a lot of stuff, experiment a lot, bring out new products. And like, even if the UCI would start to regulate their series more strictly and set more rules and regulations out there, I don't know how much it matters, because there is Gravel Earth Series, there is the Lifetime Grand Prix, and that just really matters to the pros. These are important events, and I don't think that they are UCI minded. They like what's going on, and we as spectators and fans of the sport, we also like it, right? It's fun stuff to talk about.
I totally agree. I could not agree more. I think we have to get more independent of the UCI, and the UCI have been. I have not been a huge fan of the UCI lately. They claim to be more interested in rider safety and come up with those strange rules, which basically do the opposite of being more safe. They're just restricting innovation and pushing the boundaries or I mean, there's a reason why there's racing. Racing is always trying to involve the things we're doing and try to get better at whatever we're thinking about our bodies more. We're thinking about nutrition. We're thinking about the material, about the bikes. And if you just limit yourself in so many different ways, we're not moving on from anything. And claiming again in rider safety when there's actually people dying on the racetrack of UCI organized world championships in the middle of Europe, is just a joke to me. And they should start working on rider safety on the right places and not on fucking, sorry for swearing, on restricting gear ratios and handlebar widths. I think that's the wrong place to start. We're trying to land things on Mars and on Moon, but we cannot guarantee a positioning or whereabouts of riders in the middle of Europe. Is just a joke to me. And I'm happy to see that race series or races like the Gravel Earth series, like the Epic series on mountain biking, are having the UCI involved in some rate in some capacity, but they try to create products and create races and trying to make cycling grow without those stupid rules and without the governing body which slows down innovation so much.
Yeah. I mean, just a last road tangent. If we see guys in the lead out train riding 5 minutes with 150 RPM at 60 something kmh, I'm curious how secure that is.
Yeah, let's not start there. I think if you boil it down, I mean, we going down roads with basically naked with just a helmet on. Cycling itself, it bears immense risk, and you can only mitigate that in to some extent. And I think there's still, I mean, the cycling lives off the industry and lives off selling bikes. And if you stop there and on the same tangent, if you're for the mountain bike World Cups, the UCI World Cups, if you're increasing, there's so many things I could start talking on. I think they need some real changes up there and some fresh ideas and not to limit the core values of what cycling is about, of creation and innovation, and limiting the gear ratio and limiting the handlebar width is not the right place.
How are they doing in mountain biking? Are they more giving you more freedom in terms of gear, or are there also like these restrictive approaches?
No, so far there's no real restriction. The only I study the UCI regulations quite a lot because we are in that prototype phase with the handlebar. And for example, with the handlebar has to be flat. There cannot be a drop bar. There cannot be a second position on the handlebar. Those are the restrictions. But there's no. I think it has to be a minimum. There's a minimum width of like 50. I think that's the minimum width. Other than that, there's no restrictions. Also with the seating positions or, to the bike itself, there's limited amount. But still, you're doing like major drops and major jumps. You're jumping down rocks and rock gardens and whatever. But then on the same, it doesn't make they're not consequent with some of their restrictions. They're putting some positions are not allowed on the road bike anymore, but you're still going down 100 k's an hour. If you're falling down with 100 k's, it doesn't matter the position, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then another critique I wanna mention on the mountain bike side is they increased the prices or the start prices for the mountain bike World Cup so much on a time where maybe the cycling industry is not the healthiest. Mm-hmm. And they want to try to get the money from the teams and from the industry, and creating. They have a new marketing approach, or a new media approach to the whole mountain bike World Cup, and restricting or making it harder to enter the mountain bike World Cup in a significant way. I think it's also the wrong timing, doing it right now and letting the teams itself pay for it instead of selling a product which you're creating for more money or making it more profitable in your own way. You try to take out more money from the participants, and if you're doing it more and more, you're just creating less participants, and therefore you have less competition, a worse product, and you're making less money in it. I think it's not a wise business move, but who am I? I'm just a rider.
But, and that's a good segue, you're also, as you already alluded to, a team boss, owner, whatever. And you talked a bit about Speed Company and before, but I'd like you to explain a bit more how it came about and how the model works. Why? Because as you are certainly aware, teams are coming to Gravel now as well. And these structures are very different from what people know on the road. And there's not one format for how this works. You have some like more or less factory teams, like par racing, for instance. Then you have a few road teams that are now building their off-road squads, but they obviously run differently than, for instance, what Tudor is doing. That is not really related to the Tudor Pro road team, at least in an organizational sense. How is Speed Company set up?
Yeah, it's a two-man show. It was created out of the necessity of me not having a team and Georg being unhappy with his last team. We've been part of teams for all our cycling career, but I was at a point I stopped racing at all. I was just a student, and during COVID, I had the idea of I like being on the bike actually, and I miss it so much. And Georg, like I said, was unhappy in the situation he was in right now. And then there was the idea, okay, how can we race? We have so much experience. We know what we need. Why don't we do it on our own? And we are the type of racers, we don't need a big structure around us. I don't need someone to clean my shoes or to cook for me. I was that weird guy as a junior. I was cooking my own food in the hotel room with an induction plate, and cleaning my dishes in the bathroom while others went to the buffet in the hotel. So I know what I need to race good, and I'm not dependent on, or I don't like to be dependent on other people. I never had that full inclusive package experience what some road pros had maybe in the past or experiencing now. I was never really a fan of that. I like taking matters in my own hand and controlling my own destiny. So it was like a natural evolution, taking all our experience we had in the past and creating our own team. And then basically we are since then riders, we are team managers, we are marketing guys, all in one person. Our team structure is that we are handling the business to the outside, but also on the back office side. We have another photographer we're hiring mechanics and soigneurs for certain races, but everything else we're doing on our own. We are talking to the marketing teams of the individual brands. We are together with Bastian Marx. We are negotiating. He's helping us out on the contract side. So we have people helping us, but the core team is just us two. So if we're going to races, we're booking our own stuff. We're organizing trips and events. We're having a podcast, Speed Company Radio. You can find it on Spotify and Apple, and the links are on our Instagram. We're handling our Instagram ourselves. So we're doing a lot, not just racing. But that's what we like. That keeps us busy. That keeps the mind busy. And apart that, we're also fathers. Me recently, Georg for a bit longer. So we have that's actually our full-time job. So it's basically a privateer, but or from the other way around. We're basically a professional cycling team, but we are carrying more position than just a rider. We are also team managers. We are the marketing department, the financial department. We're everything together.
Which I believe is like financially also the way how to make it viable, right? Like especially if you have like two riders, do you foresee signing riders besides the two of you at some point, or is that not really something you want to do?
The idea of Speed Company, what we sold to the partners, and then the spirit, not the spirit of gravel, but the spirit of us, is like two best friends being independent and autonomous, working on their own. But I would like to see a Speed Company growing together now with our partners Obea and Lead. We have the talks maybe in the future to extend our teams, but as long as I'm there's not we cannot grow numbers wise linear, but the expenses grow exponentially. So let's say we take 2 other guys or 2 other girls, that wouldn't mean we have to get double the money. It's like triple the money, because then you have to hire a proper team manager, because I can manage myself and maybe Georg together, and we're sharing the load on the back end. But it's impossible for me to take care of another egoistic narcissist cyclist. On top of that, it just bursts my capability. It's just too much. And if we ever had to have the chance to financially make it work, I would like to. And maybe in the future, if I'm stepping back out of the role from an athlete and more into a team manager role, I can see myself doing it. But in the position we're in right now, there's just not enough time in the day to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, a way forward could be to bring on other already privateers, especially from the gravel space, who know how the business works, who also can do all the other stuff and can support with that. I mean, like my personal background, I had a tech startup for the last 4 years, and I've been in tech and the startup world since forever, essentially. And there is also this like DIY bootstrapped founder spirit where people just build companies with sometimes very small teams, and they can bring them to big scale. And obviously getting the right team of people around you is critical at this point. And I think that's also interesting in gravel in particular, because there we don't the structures are just emerging at this point in time, and we don't know where it is going. But I like the idea of what you guys are doing, which is essentially you just a few privateers team up to build a team to their liking. And of course, there is one critical component which I hope gravel is going to get right. I actually wrote a long piece on Escape Collective a while ago, where I advocated for teams. I think the sport needs teams, for instance, for talent discovery, because you can't become a privateer if you are young and you don't have success. But if you don't have a talent pipeline, you never have an entertaining sports product, so to speak. We need to talk about who is the hot new guy coming bursting onto the scene. But I hope we get like a sustainable structure in this sport, including I would advocate for organizers starting to introduce some kind of revenue sharing with the teams and so on, all the stuff we don't have in road cycling, at least, but we have in other successful sports leagues, to do it sustainable. But that's a different topic. But definitely, like the private,
that's where all the big money comes from.
Yeah,
the ad revenue and then the television revenue. That's where I don't know.
I mean, in
UFC,
gravel, we're not at television
football,
money yet.
Yeah,
we are at like 300K watching the free live stream on YouTube of the biggest gravel race in the world stage.
And that's a shitty gravel race to watch.
Yeah, indeed. People say like, don't start televising the 11 hours in Kansas race.
It's a shame.
Yeah. But we are definitely getting there, and the structure of the sport will be built. And if I mean, we will get to the point where it's necessary to have a team if you want to be competitive in these races, at least some of the races, depending on the course. But your way.
That's the most important thing. I think the gravel, that's why it works on mountain biking, because on mountain biking you are less dependent on your team to win. If you have the legs, if you have the technical skills, you can do it on your own, no problem. It's in cross country the same. If of course you have to be able to work on your bike a bit as well, but just right at the race, you're not doing the race. You're not depending on a guy working for you, a guy giving you the bottles, or closing down gaps. It's just you and your legs. And on gravel racing, I also have thoughts about what about on stage races. Like I'm super excited about gravel burn. I'm super invested in gravel burn at the moment, and I'm having a call later with the organizer of gravel burn, because they also want our feedback. Things like, okay, if you're taking the world tour, core tour model of like sprint stages or different kind of stages, then you have like bonus sprints, breakaways. Team structures should be limited to how many people? Should there be any teams at all? But as soon the less selective the track is, the more team tactics are involved, and the more dependent are you on teams. So, for example, gravel burn. If you say, okay, you're limiting the teams to, let's say, 4 people. Mm-hmm. If you're starting alone against 4 people and you're in your breakaway and you have 3 guys closing the gap for you, you have a huge disadvantage, because they can bring down gaps. They can after a puncture, they stop with you. They ride you back into the group. All those things are involved. The less selective the track is, and the less demanding the course is on the individual. If you can benefit from riding in a group, then there's inevitably going to be teams formed or alliances formed to work for one leader or to work for one rider. But if on those gravel races where it's like mano a mano, and you have to really show your cards right from the beginning, I think it doesn't matter if you start with 10 guys, they won't help you to the victory. So it's going to be interesting.
No, definitely agreed. I mean, on here we talk about this topic a lot, and our team tactics are coming to gravel. It's race dependent, just as you described, how they work, if they work at all. But we are going there. I recently heard that it's like currently even the best teams in gravel are mostly privateer teams, like Par Racing, impressive results this year so far, but they don't do proper team tactics. That is what they say, and it's also true. I mean, they wouldn't pull like in the chase. If one is ahead and one in the chase group, the one in the chase group will sit in and not pull. Fair enough, but there is not like domestiquing happening so far, because also if you look at how it works financially, they are all still privateers. They are incentivized for their own results and not incentivized and paid to be domestiques. But if and when that is coming, and I think it's not an if, it's a when, then in certain races that creates such an advantage, like you just described. And I also think it's a cool opportunity for the sport and the people driving the sport forward, especially the ones outside the cycling establishment, let's call it. So to not single out the UCI, but yeah, pretty much the UCI, they can start implementing structures right now, regulating how do teams have to operate, how does the money flow, and there are ways how to make it better than what you find in cycling these days.
Totally agree. I thought about it during the race of Unbound, actually, where I looked in the group and we're like 30 guys, and there are like multiple guys from Rose and multiple guys from Par. So, and I thought, okay, if that was a road race, all the guys alone here would look at the guys with the multiple jerseys here and would say, it's up to you to bring down the gap. Huh? You don't have anyone in the break. You have to close it. But still, there was no real cohesion and no real agreement under the riders, and maybe also to the detriment of themselves, because they miss on an opportunity. But then again, when there's a good TV product, you can also sell those efforts. You know, those efforts are, if there's no television and no camera on them, those efforts a team would do to bring down a group or bring back a group are all in vain. They just fuck themselves up. Okay, if it works, they maybe win a sprint in the end if the group comes together. If not, they just brought back the group. But if there's a camera on them and they're talking about the group effort of Rose or Par Normal, then all of a sudden you're creating value, even if there's no victory in the end. Similar to what's going on the road. If there are 2 guys from Ineos and Bahrain in the group, and then Jumbo has to close the gap, and they're on the television, and they're talked about. They're all lined up, and they can present the sponsors. Yeah. But as soon as all those things, I think they're gonna involve, and they have to involve, and then the whole dynamic changes again on gravel cycling. But it's interesting how it will go, and I would like to see it. I actually would like to see it.
Yeah, and I think we're getting there. I mean, last year, famously, probably you heard of Chase Walk before. He's like known for his crazy aero builds. Yeah. And last year, where obviously we didn't have a live stream yet at Unbound, he still went into the breakaway with the sole idea in his mind to grow his Instagram following. So it was the TV break reinvented for social media, the Instagram breakaway, and it worked. I think he got like around 700, if I remember correctly, new followers just from being in the breakaway at Unbound. And people could only follow it like in the live stream or the live thing on Instagram last year. And this year we saw like 300K views for the Unbound live stream is definitely, I think, not bad numbers. It's not.
No, it's not bad considering what the live stream is. I mean, it's what do you talk about for 10 hours? The pictures are super mundane. It's just no real onboard.
They started
camera.
after half the race, so it was like a 5-6 hour live stream, and they were super lucky because they had so Payson McAlvin. I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he has like his own podcast. He's like a media prone privateer. He was in the booth with the commentators, and I think that increased the value of the stream by a lot. Because he did a very good job. So it was entertaining. Watching it for like 5-6 hours or so was good.
But then again, all the action in the beginning is missed where the break was built and the attacks were going. So why do you even race 10 hours if you'd only show 5? That would be my argument.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that was the first thing that came up. Next time we need the live stream of the full race. I mean, they still showed the beginning on Instagram. So if you are like a real proper fan like I am, then you watch the first half of the race via Instagram live footage, and then you jump to the YouTube live stream. That's the way how we experience it these days. Plus, we also have Athlinks open to get proper time gaps. And there is we did a critique of the live stream on here with like the Holy Spirit of Gravel. And there are details that can be improved. Like, for instance, they have to cover, already one cycling race. To cover it properly is difficult. If you have like a mountain stage, then you have like the guys from the breakaway in the front. You have the chase group with the GC guys. Then you have the peloton, and that it involves, like, for the director of the broadcast, it's challenging to not miss the action. But at Unbound, because the men's and the women's race is happening at the same time, now suddenly you have to cover 2 races that are broken apart in different groups and sections. So yeah, we missed some stuff. It was sometimes not perfectly easy to follow what was going on. Like, for instance, at one time there was the move of Paul Voss and Mats Schmidt bridging from the main group to the chase group at Unbound.
Yeah.
We at no point did we get pictures from this chase group. I just knew from following the Athlinks tracker that it was going on. So that is stuff that, of course, you would prefer to see the pictures from. But I also understand that, like, yeah, it's the first time they tried to produce it and live stream it themselves. It was on I think Flow Cycling or something before. So I give them some leeway, and I think they at least are in the mindset where they want to build a good media product out of it. And I'm all for it.
Yeah, they have to, for sure. I mean, I also like to see the whole thing improve, because with a good live stream and a good media product, everyone is benefiting from it. The athletes, the sponsors, the brands, the race itself. I don't know if that's a correct translation, but it falls and stands. Or like it's a main thing you can build on a nice product for everyone.
Indeed. Do you have any final words, thoughts about migration before I let you go back to your kit, your training, maybe?
No, actually not. I think I talked a lot about it. If you want to have a raw African experience, do it. It's definitely a once in a lifetime experience. And like I said, as a privileged European cyclist, you sometimes forget the core essence of what life or cycling is all about. And I don't know if how well traveled you are, or what you've seen from the world, but a proper third world country experience that on the bike while racing and the nature. It's definitely culturally educating, and also beautiful from a nature perspective. So you will take a lot more from that trip than just the race, just migration, and gives you a good perspective and a good reset for the rest of the season, or maybe a lifetime experience. Yeah.
Lovely. Thanks a lot for your time, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Was actually super nice.
Now I'm joined by Haley Hunter Smith. Haley, nice to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me to be here.
Yeah, I mean, you did have a pretty awesome migration gravel, which we are going to focus on today. We may also touch upon some races you have done in the meantime, if that is okay with you. But let's begin with migration, which this episode is all about. If people didn't see the results so far, not only did you win GC, but you also won 3 of the 4 stages. So I guess it's fair to classify that as a pretty dominant performance out there. But let's start a bit earlier before we get into the race. Like, what role did migration gravel play for you in your season planning? Was it like Lukas told me earlier, for him it was pretty much a training race? Was it like this for you? Was it an A race even, or where did it rank in your
It was a race that I was most excited about. So I sort of have races that are A races because the outcome is important professionally, and then I have races that are A races because I am really looking forward to them and I want to show up, and they are races that really motivate me. So I suppose it was kind of similar to Lukas. I wanted to show up ready to really capitalize on the opportunity to have a great race in an enjoyable and awesome place, but I also was treating it like a good training stimulus. So for me, migration made up a large chunk of my primary altitude block of training for the summer. So it served multiple purposes.
I saw you, and it was either in the UCI race that you also did when you went over there. As Lukas told me, there was a package that most people apparently booked, because I think most people in the pro peloton from like internationals did both races actually. But I saw a clip where you were riding behind a zebra. Was that in the race or reconning something?
That was in the race. So there was a 1-day race before migration called Safari Gravel. It was a UCI sanctioned gravel race. And I was off the front just a little bit, probably only a 20-meter gap between myself and the field on a climb. And the zebra, we startled it, and it darted across the road in between myself and the rest of the peloton, sprinted up my left-hand side, and then darted back across in front of me. And I just happened to have my camera on my chest. So I tapped it, and it ran in front of me for a while.
I was wondering about the camera actually. Do you usually often run like a chest cam when racing? Because most people don't, but it didn't look like phone footage. So yeah, I assumed you probably ran the proper, I don't know, GoPro or Insta360 setup.
Exactly. It was an Insta360, and I usually wouldn't race with it. We try to minimize unnecessary contraptions and weight as much as possible, but I figured that there would be some cool stuff that I would want to remember and see racing in Kenya, so I had it on my chest at the time.
Yeah, good on you. A good Instagram clip. A gravel race experience to be chasing a zebra.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was going fast, apparently.
It was going pretty fast. He was hoofing it at like 30K an hour. So
in terms of your trip planning then, when did you actually arrive over there? Did you come, I assume, from somewhere in North America, Canada, the States? So you did have actually quite a jet lag, possibly, with the time difference. When did you get there?
Yeah, so I flew on the Tuesday, and it's quite long to get from where I am east of Montreal in Canada. So you fly to Frankfurt and then you fly straight down to Nairobi. So it's 2 10-hour flights roughly.
Yeah.
So it's long. And then I guess leaving on Tuesday, I arrived late Wednesday, early Thursday morning, and then had Friday to recon. And then I raced that 1-day race on the Saturday.
The 1-day race, was it like a throw-in for you, or did you also want to win it?
I mean, I always want to win every race that I line up for. It's just sometimes more realistic than others. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to go, if there were 2 race opportunities, I wasn't going to go all the way to Kenya and only take one of them. So I was happy to do the 1-day race, and I won that one as well. So that was nice. But it was also it was just part of the whole experience. To me, they were a package deal.
Which, when I heard that it's also like sold and offered as a package, actually quite a cool and smart thing to do. I think it's also is the UCI race also organized by Team Armani? It is, right? I think I saw it on their website.
Yes, if not the primary organizer, they're heavily involved. I'm not exactly sure how the responsibilities are split up, but they do make it very easy for international people who are maybe intimidated of, like I was, intimidated of solo travel to Kenya. They make it very easy to register for both, and they will sort out your accommodation based on what you select, which type of package you select. So it was quite seamless.
Nice. So in terms of preparation, we definitely need to talk about the bike that you ended up racing over there. But before we get there, let me tell you a little anecdote. When at the end of last year, we introduced our Gravel Season Awards. And one category in which we handed out awards was like I think we called it the most interesting bike setup or something to that extent. And we did vote on these awards, we in this case being Paul Voss, who is often co-hosting this with me, and Amanda Newman back at this point. I think as she married, her surname changed, but I'm not quite sure what it is actually right now. So anyways, we did in the end chase walk one, but we had a little riff, especially Amanda, who pointed out that, well, either there are not so many women bikes that get talked about in the gravel peloton, which either could be media not focusing on it or just the builds not being so far out there, so interesting. But like, if I would just in simple terms describe what you were running, and I would like to hear the details from you in a second. You were essentially having a full suspension drop bar bike, which some would definitely classify as a Franken bike. Me personally, I just love these builds. So how did you end up going with this build? Especially because I don't think that you did a lot of racing in Kenya before, did you?
No, yeah. So it was the bike that I raced was my Super Caliber, which is Trek's short travel dual suspension mountain bike. And we just outfitted it with drop bars. So because I run SRAM, it's really easy to pair the mountain bike drivetrain with the SRAM red road hoods. So it's a very easy thing to swap over if you have access to the parts. So that's the bike that I chose to ride. I waffled on the decision for a long time. I actually didn't make the decision of which bike I was going to bring until 24 hours before my flight. Okay. And it was going to be between a traditional gravel bike with a short, the SRAM, the Rudy fork. So it's just a very small amount of suspension, 40 mils, or I was going to take my mountain bike with drop bars. And the final straw was actually, I did a local event here at home in the Eastern Townships in Quebec. And I was riding with a person who had done migration last year. And he said that I told him that I was afraid that my mountain bike would just be too slow because it's not aerodynamic. It's quite a bit heavier. At 22.5 pounds, it's a lot heavier than an aero lightweight gravel bike. But he said that the speeds are quite low at migration compared to something like Unbound. And the terrain is very rough. So it'll be a gamble to take it, but I don't think you'll regret it. So I percolated on that for a while, and I just decided that I wanted to take the risk and bring it and try it. It's a bike that I will probably race at Leadville 100 in a month and a bit.
Makes sense.
So I thought that having the chance to try it in sort of a lower pressure race environment would be a good thing to do.
And I think it worked out pretty well for you. And in the chat that I earlier had with Lukas, he also said, like, yeah, if he would have had the option, he would have liked to run something with the suspension as well in the race. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he did it for the third time this year. It seems like a race where if you have the access to it, bringing proper suspension makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's very rough. I think people who aren't super familiar with riding a full suspension assume that it's only faster when it's mountain biking or when it's single track. But I'm actually not faster on the Super Caliber on single track compared to my gravel bike. If it's smooth, single track, flowy, I'm about the same speed. But where it really shines is on washboarded pedaling, bumpy grass pedaling, like anything where if you have properly tuned suspension, your forward momentum is going to be preserved. And there's a lot of that in Kenya. So I think that it was, obviously I suffered on some of the climbs. I bled a little bit of time on some of the longer sustained stuff, but any time where there was rough things that you wanted to continue to have high power output on, the mountain bike excelled.
And I mean, a very good point that Lukas made earlier is if you run suspension, not only, of course, you can run different tires because you don't need to run that wide of a tire, but also like all the secondary impact of the bumpy terrain that your muscles have to handle, because in the end, once the bike is shaking, you feel it. And he said, look, in mountain biking, we know this for a long time already. And especially in a stage race, that of course is super great to have, that you don't feel like sore and full of aches on day 2 already, because you have more of the vibrations eaten by the suspension. So yeah, that made a lot of sense to me as well. Mm-hmm. And I assume it was still painful enough.
It was. I honestly don't know how anyone held on to their bikes all 4 days when they didn't have suspension. My hands and my forearms, my back would have been absolutely destroyed. So yeah, there was a woman in my category, Sarah Diekmeyer, who her hands were she had no skin left on them, because if you don't have any suspension, your hands are absorbing that first point of contact with all the vibration. So yeah, suspension all the way at migration.
Yeah, sounds like it. So in terms of preparation, did you do any other special thing ahead of time that we should know about, like I don't know, scouting maps, content for days on end, prepping a lot of nutrition? Did you eat from the buffet for everyone, or did you bring your own rice like Lukas did?
So I didn't. Yeah, I will talk about my nutrition plan. In terms of general preparation, there was nothing really specific I did. I did upload the routes to Strava and to VeloViewer, and I kind of try to look at them, but I didn't do that too much. I kind of relied on the pre-race briefing each evening, where the race organizers would tell us sort of some key things about the stage. Yeah, but other than that, I mean, it was a week and a half. I left a week and a half after Unbound, so there wasn't a lot of time to do much prep. Yeah. But my nutrition is something I really focused on. So I had estimated, based on talking to Sarah Sturm, who won the year prior, how many hours the race would take. And then I, calculated all the grams of carbs I would need in race, and I had them all partitioned out into baggies for, this was stage 1's bag, 2, 3, 4, so that I was pretty organized heading into the camp, because you're also restricted on space that you can bring. They request that you bring a small sort of duffel carry-on sized suitcase at maximum. So I was trying to be very deliberate about everything that I brought.
Yeah, so these documentaries they shoot, and I was wondering because like from Oregon Trail, what is happening or just happened right after, essentially we know these big boxes that everybody can have, or I think you can pay to have 2 boxes even, but just to even the playing field. But there you had your baggage, and that was carried around.
Yeah, you flew in and you drove to the first camp with your bike bag, with your bike packed in it, and then they requested a carry-on size duffel, but we probably all had like 70 to 90 liter duffels. But within that, you had to have your sleeping bag if you brought a thermarest for extra padding, all your nutrition, all of your spare parts had to go in your duffel, because that was the only bag that would travel with you to the other base camp. So we were tight on space, but it was manageable. It was definitely manageable. And then as for nutrition, I did eat from the buffet the first night, but I have some like food intolerances, so I was feeling off pretty quickly. My guts struggled after day 1, so at that point I moved to camp meals that I had brought myself, just because I could be sure that I wasn't allergic to anything.
Yeah, makes sense. So then let's get into the race and talk a bit about how the different stages unfolded for you. And stage 1, apparently your worst day, at least from a results perspective out there. I watched all the documentary content that is out there by Team Amani, but there was I don't recall that there was a big focus on you in the day 1 episode. So how did day 1 go for you?
I was a hurting unit. I for a couple of reasons. I mean, I don't want these to be excuses, because everyone else just rode really well. Like these aren't excuses. They're more like mistakes, I suppose, and things that I did wrong. But day 1 fell on my 7th day of altitude exposure, which is usually pretty rough for me. I'm a sea level gal, and day 7 to 8 are usually really bad for me. So I was already feeling a little bit off. And then in the race, the girls were putting the hurt on me right at the beginning. I felt tired and I wasn't there. And then maybe 2 hours in, it wasn't even a muscle cramp. It was like a spasm kind of down the whole left side of my body. So my back and my glute just stopped working, and I was excruciating, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. I had to get off my bike and like lay on the ground and try to get my leg to extend. Like it was very odd.
During the race.
Anyway, so I had about 2, during the race, it was rough. It was a very dark moment. I was afraid that this was going to be what the whole 4 days was like. So I limped around the course by myself, just bleeding time and trying to make sure that I minimized the damage as much as I could. And then after the race, I discovered that I had not torqued my saddle properly, and it had slipped back about 1.5 centimeters. Okay. And I think I'm probably at the age that I am, in the number of hours of riding I do in a very specific position. I think I'm sensitive enough that was enough to cause some serious muscle spasms. So I fixed that. And then what do you know, my glutes worked properly the next day, and my left side cooperated.
Just as an aside, I'm not so sure it's like age and more like a just type question, because for instance, Lachlan is like always tinkering with the bike, never like with one diet position, but always moving stuff. And I know a few people who are more in that camp, and others just need their perfect position. And once it is off by a tiny bit, they feel like highly uncomfortable. But yeah, so in the end, if the timing that I have here is correct, then you ended up day 1 already. So you did end up in 5th place, but speaking to how this race is and how tough it actually is, the time gap is 20 minutes and 33 seconds. Is that correct? So
yeah, it was 20 minutes down. Yeah.
What are you thinking at this point in time? Are you thinking, damn, my GC bit is done? Or do you think, well, on this terrain, everything easy, only day 1, 3 days to come?
No, I mean, it's easy to be discouraged by that, but you also have to, in a stage race, there's two things. One, you have to believe that anything can happen, both to yourself and to others. Mechanicals could happen, people could bonk, anything could happen. But also you have to be willing to let go of the outcome goal. Like the outcome goal was to win, but so focusing on that and getting wrapped up in it doesn't actually really help you get there. So I had to make incremental goals and hope that that might take care of itself. So yeah, I just tried not to get discouraged. I fixed the problems and then I focused on, okay, well, how much time can I claw back every day? And we'll just see where it gets me.
How was, like, talking a bit about the field on the women's pro side? What do you think? How would you classify the competition level, and how did the races unfold? Because how many pro women were in the field? Because the way I see it, it were 16, but I'm not sure that the data is correct. Because in gravel racing, not all the data, like on pro cycling stats and so on, is correct. But were there 16 pro women?
I don't actually know. I don't know what the field size was. I would say that on any given day, there were sort of 6 to 7 athletes that were like quite competitive. That number dwindled a little bit as the race went on and, you know, people's cracks start to show. So by the end day, it was, you know, more between 2 or 3 of us that were fighting for the lead on the stage. But yeah, I don't actually know what the field size is. I didn't look at the results, if I'm being honest.
Fair enough. I mean, you know where you ended up, which is what matters in the end. But so we heard and saw in the documentary there was a bit of like team tactics going on with all the Team Armani and the Black Mamba riders out there. In the pro field, like they won the first stage, was won by Armani rider. I don't know if you can help me with the pronunciation. Xaverine Nirere or
Xaverine
Nireri. Okay. So she won stage 1, a German Svenja Betz, known for her ultra distance stuff, mostly ended in second place. Then Claudette, and this name I'm going to butcher for sure, but Nira Habimana or something like this.
I don't actually know how to say Claudette's last name. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Madeleine Nutt, better probably known by her Instagram handle Madinati, and then in 5th place it was yourself. So that was how day 1 played out. How long were you in a group on this day? I guess with all the issues you described, at some point you were soloing for a fair bit.
I was with people near the beginning, and then Zav I think she and Claudette got away off the front, but I had been dropped at that point already. And then I was kind of yo-yoing off the back of Maddie's group. And then I was with Sarah Diekmeyer, who I eventually repassed, but I was with her when my body started to fully seize. So I think I was as far back as 6th or 7th. And spent quite a bit of the time alone. I think that day was maybe about 5 hours, and I was probably alone for half of it, maybe a little more than half.
Great start this day. But then day 2 comes around, and it seems like things flipped. Your saddle was properly mounted. How did the second day go for you?
Yeah, I felt like a different person on the second day. I believe that day 2 started with 80 kilometers of relatively flat terrain before we hit a very long climb. So we were a group. It was myself, Zav, Svenja, and Claudette. For most of those first 3 hours, it took us about 3 hours to go 80K into the main climb of the day. And then heading into the main climb, which was 18 or 20 kilometers long and about 800 meters of gain, shallower at the bottom and steeper at the top. Zav started to drive quite a hard pace, and she dropped me. And I can't remember if Claudette also got away at that point, but I knew that just with the altitude, I needed to go a more steady pace. So I dropped off a bit and I went my own pace up the climb. And then by the time we were at the top, which was, we were at about 2,600 meters above sea level, Zav had just over 2 or 2.5 minutes on me on the climb. But I had hedged my bets and I knew that if we went up 20K, we had to descend 20K. So I just railed the descent pretty well. It was a mix of some single tracks, some sort of like rugged mountain descending, a little bit of dirt road descending, quite a mix of everything. And then we finished.
That's where your bike comes in handy.
It does. And I mean, I also know how to ride it really well. Like I come from, cross country mountain bike racing. And so the bike is a huge positive, but descending is also, regardless of the bike, one of my strengths. And I know that about myself. So I knew that I would be able to capitalize on this. But yeah, so at some point on the descent, I passed her. And then that final 20 kilometers of rolling, mostly like open dirt road terrain. I think I had put in, I think I won the stage by 5 minutes. So I was able to claw quite a bit of time back on the downhill stuff and the flat stuff.
5 minutes, 8 seconds to be precise. And then after this, the gaps get really big already, because like Anna Yamauchi in third place already 27:48 back, Svenja Bates 33 minutes. But yeah, you definitely inched closer and reduced your overall gap to 15 minutes at this point in time.
Yeah, I think I'll just add one thing. Like once you are by yourself in these races, the gaps do go out. Like it's not, a lot of keeping gaps small is keeping each other in sight. So as soon as you're out of sight, that's something that I use as an advantage if I'm off the front, but you have to keep that in mind as someone who's chasing, that it's really important to try to be able to see your competition, because that will keep your pace higher. But anyways, yeah, so gaps got quite big for the rest of the week because most of us were riding solo by about the halfway point of each stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there is not really a lot of groups once we get into the decisive phase of the race, which is also, if it's just a 16 person group or start list, then it's what happens. Okay, so that was stage 2. As you already alluded to your riding background, one thing that I'd be curious about is like, nowadays, what would you classify yourself as a rider? Because yes, you have a mountain bike background, and I think it's also how you started riding, but you also did a fair amount of road racing in like UCI races. No? That is what you...
I've done one road race in my life.
Okay, because I checked out your pro cycling stats, and there are several races out there. But
so there are 3 Haley Smiths.
And then there is a data hiccup. Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, there are 2 Haley Smiths from North America and 1 Haley Smith from South Africa, and we're all about the same age. So people get us confused.
Yeah, and Pro Cycling Stats does, so they need to clean up their data, because like if we're on your on the profile of Haley Smith, who won Migration Gravel, which I assume is you, and I went back to 2023, then I saw like results in like the Grand Tour de Ciclismo in Brazil and several other races, but that's not you actually. Okay.
No, it's not. My first road race was this April.
So somebody needs to shoot them an email to clean up their data. Okay. So then I guess how would you classify yourself not having done a lot of road racing? Mostly gravel or more mountain biker?
So I'm definitely a mountain biker. I seem to do more gravel racing now, but I think the way I would classify myself is sort of an off-road racer who gravitates towards races that provide technical opportunities. So it doesn't really matter what bike it's on. Like, I don't know, would you call my bike at Migration a mountain bike or a gravel bike? I'm not sure. Would I call Migration a gravel race or a mountain bike race? I'm not sure. It's kind of, I would call it like an off-road marathon race. I think Trek would tell you that I am a gravel racer, but in my heart of hearts, I'm definitely a mountain biker.
Mountain biker. So mountain bikers seem to do quite well at Migration Gravel, it turns out. Or in general, at a lot of modern gravel racing, mountain bikers seem to do fairly well. Turns out riding your bike off-road is useful, or being able to handle your bike is a useful skill to have if you want to do well in these races. Okay, so let's get back to migration gravel. So after stage 2, I assume confidence must have been better than after stage 1. And then what is stage 3 like? I remember, if I remember
Stage
correctly,
3,
a fair amount of climbing.
I think stage 3, well, I don't know which one was the queen stage, but stage 3 was quite a significant amount of climbing, about 3,000 meters or so. And it was 190 kilometers, I think, either 180 or 190. So it was very long. And I know personally that I'm so descending is one of my skills. Technical climbing is one of my skills. And then being good at handling fatigue is one of my skills. So I knew that the deeper into the race, both in terms of the stage and in the, like within the stage and across stages, I knew that I would get relatively stronger. So day 3 was kind of perfect for me. It was some hard climbing off the start with some single track climbing, a really amazing bit of single track descending. So that kind of went on for the first 30K. And then it was sort of a long, grueling, rolling route until another big climb, but it was sort of technical. So I tried to, in the first 30 kilometers, anytime it was technical, I would try to force the gap. So I would get a little bit of gap and I would make Zavarine chase back on. So I was kind of trying to just tire her out a little bit. And eventually I was able to make...
Is it only the two of you at this point?
We made the start hard enough that within a few kilometers, it was just the two of us. Probably within 10K, it was the two of us. There were men in our vicinity, but it was the two of us racing against each other. And yeah, so by about kilometer 30 or 40, the elastic had fully snapped and I exited the final single track with a couple minutes. And then I was around other people until kilometer 60, at which point I was totally alone. So from kilometer 60 to 180, so the end of the stage, I was by myself. And I just tried to dig in and ride a good 120K TT. And it involved, like I said, a variety of terrain, relatively technical, so it suited me. And it was also very wet. So it started to rain before the final climb, which was about 15 or 16 kilometers. And it was quite technical and it was really rocky on the descent down the other side. So I just tried to stay on the pressure through that because I knew that if I know my descending and my climbing skills in the rain and the mud and the slippery stuff are also pretty good for mountain biking. So I was by myself, but it was beautiful. It was a really, really engaging course. I loved the terrain on that day. It was awesome. But I went pretty deep. Like I won by quite a lot, enough to overtake the GC, but I finished that day worried about getting through day 4 because of how deep I'd gone.
Then how did the night go? Did you manage to at least have some good sleep, or?
Oh no, my metrics would tell you that I didn't sleep at all. My wearables, I kind of had that typical, I don't know if you've experienced it, but a post-race sleep where you've gone so hard that your body can't calm down. I had one of those nights. But the stage had taken so long. So stage 3 took me 7 hours, which meant that the amateurs were out there. There were amateurs finishing at dark, which the organizers weren't happy with because of safety. Mm-hmm. So they ended up shortening day 4, which meant that at first I was bummed, but then I realized that given how tired I was, going from 190K, which was what it was supposed to be, down to 140 would be a benefit for me.
And the end would have been a pretty tough climb still, right? Like going up there. And so that...
Yeah, so what they actually removed a climb and descent in the middle of stage 4 because of the rain we'd gotten, there was a river crossing that was quite significant. So they just sort of removed a lollipop that had involved that river crossing, which took out some of the climbing.
Yeah, makes sense. So you make it through, I would say in pretty good shape still through this day then, because you end up winning the last stage as well. Any special occurrences during day 4 still?
Yeah, day 4 was probably the most exciting because it was the most dynamic, and I knew that I was going to face some team tactics. It was 140 kilometers and only about 1,200 meters of climbing. So it climbed, most of the climbing was in the first half, and then it trended down for 60, 80 kilometers. And I know that's when it trends down or is flat and it's relatively wide open, that's one of Zavrine's skills. Anyway, so her and Claudette made the start really, really hard. It was like sea level VO2 power for the first 10 minutes.
Wow.
On day 4, I felt like trash. It was awful, but I knew that I just had to grit my teeth and dig in and not lose the wheel. So she and Claudette were kind of going on 1-2 punches. And actually Anna Yamauchi was having a better day and she was riding with us as well. Yeah, so there were numerous times where I had to grit my teeth and really, really dig in to hold the wheel. And then probably 2 hours into the race, there was kind of like an unspoken truce and the pace settled a little bit. So it was myself and Zav and Claudette. And I think they had kind of exhausted their attempts to shell me. And we rode together for a while. And then I just knew that the deeper into a race you get, the less difficult your attack has to be for it to actually stick. So with about 30K to go, when everyone was pretty tired, that's when I went, I had sort of established a pattern with the riders of where if it was a technical little downhill through a water crossing or something, I would enter first, go fast, and then sag climb up the next little climb.
Yep.
And then I just reversed that pattern with like 30 or 35K to go. I just did the opposite. So I went in fast and then I stayed fast. And the gap grew pretty much instantly. And then I just was able to ride the last hour at a pretty high tempo by myself. But so it was a good chance to practice tactics. And it was a very tactical day. It was fun.
Nice. So how is the arrival at the finish line for you then? Because I assume you're still, where does it end actually? Is it still super rural or does it end in a more urban area?
So I think it's probably different every year, but it still ends rurally at the camp on the Masai Mara. So it's this beautiful open savanna. You're finishing. There's giraffes and wildebeest and everything, like all in view of the finish line. And it was really cool actually because Migration is a small enough race that you meet a lot of people and you make friends with the amateurs that are there. And for example, my tent neighbors, they were riding the shorter course. So there's our course and then the shorter ones, I think, called the Zebra. And we ended up coming to the finish line pretty much right at the same time. So we got to celebrate together and celebrate each other's achievements. Because whether you're racing amateur or pro, Migration is an achievement to finish that race. So anyways, it was really cool. And then
people sometimes forget, like normies like us, if we do these races and like, especially if we go for the long distance, then the time we spend out there is significantly longer. And yeah, if I heard that on multiple days, amateurs finished super late in the evening. So the hours racing out there is even on a different level than for you pro folks out there.
It's insane. I say this a lot because the races we do have a huge amateur participation component and they're all very difficult. Like gravel races are usually for the winner. They're from, 5 hours to Unbound's 11 hours. They're really long. And you got the non-pros are not pushing themselves really any less hard than us, and they're doing it for twice as long. So it's and they don't get to train as much. Like I spend all of my time preparing my body to be ready to do these things, and then people who don't have that privilege just go out and smash it. Like I find it so impressive.
Yeah, it's you need to love it to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but back to the arrival at the camp. Do people then still stay the night after the last stage in the camp, and then is there some like partying going on or?
Yeah, so you finish at the bush camp. That's when you would pack all your stuff up. There's a celebration with the Maasai people that are there. They, do a sort of ceremony, which was really cool to have that cultural piece of it. There's a big dinner. People are more relaxed, so there's music going, and there's less people stay up later and hang out and whatnot. And then the following morning, you load up the buses and you depart the Masai Mara. And because you're in such a rural area, you sort of do a game drive as you leave. So you traverse the savannah for a bit, and you get like your little safari out of it. I mean, you've had one on your bike, you've seen everything there is to see pretty much, but you get to see it from the bus. But yeah, so you finish rurally in the Masai Mara, and then you commute via the safari vehicles back to Nairobi the following day.
Lovely. Sounds like a pretty good experience, besides just the race and of course the good result that you achieved, but just non-regular experience on the gravel bike out, or the suspension Franken bike out there.
Yeah, no, it was one of the best experiences on a bicycle I've ever had. It was incredible. I would strongly encourage anyone who is thinking about it to do the race. It will require flexibility and patience and a very robust, adventurous spirit. And it is technical. It's a difficult race. But it was really enriching. It was like a bucket list type of experience.
Are you going to try to defend your title next year? Do you already know? Would you like to, or is it like one of the race races?
Yeah, I
won it. Thank you.
No, I'm going back. Okay. I'm definitely going back. I'm bringing some of my teammates want to come. My husband, who also races, he was meant to come this year, but he had a conflict, so he'll be coming next year. But I mean, there's no such thing as defending your title, because you'll be racing against different people and in a different course and in different circumstances. So, I mean, I would try to win 2026 migration, but that's as much as I would look at it.
Yeah, new race, new game. So zooming a bit out, of course, you're doing the Lifetime Grand Prix. How tempting is it now that you won? And I think migration is also one of the plus 20% bonus points of the Gravel Earth series. Is it now tempting for you to try to collect some points at other events, like in North America somewhere, and try to qualify for the overall there? Or is it not a relevant goal this year for you at all?
I haven't looked at it. My schedule is quite full for the rest of the year, so I think it's unlikely that I would add more Gravel Earth events. This was the first Gravel Earth event I'd ever done. But next year, my hope would be to move towards a focus on Gravel Earth. Lifetime's given me a lot, and it's been, it's been a great experience, but this is my 4th year doing those same events. So I'm looking for some change and some more differently enriching experiences on a bicycle. So now that you've said that, I'll go look at the Gravel Earth calendar and see what events remain this year, but it's probably a 2026 endeavor.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what they did, and it's a storyline we cover on here, because I'm curious how the perception of Gravel Earth series changes among North American-based riders, because they added so many North American races this year. So Oregon Trail was also Gravel Earth series. They added the Lost and Found, even the Gravel Worlds. So former, I think this year, former Garmin Gravel Worlds in Nebraska is also now Gravel Earth series. So they made it pretty easy for North American riders to get there. I think 3 races you need to qualify for the overall, and then you need to do the Rancho in Spain. But essentially, you don't have to travel to Africa, which of course is great to do, but you can do all the necessary point collecting in North America even. But it's interesting that you say it's tempting, and especially if you're a veteran in Lifetime. And then at some point, I mean, they changed the races as well, right? So this year, no Shawarma again. I think Little Sugar will excite you as a mountain biker. But still, it's... and I mean, it's 6 races this year. So there is room to do a few other races.
Yeah, I do have my event calendar I think I had 25 or 30 events on my calendar this year.
Wow.
So it was quite significant, split between mountain biking and gravel. And I've been racing since January. So I shouldn't add I shouldn't add any more events. There's still a bunch to come.
For gravel
And the
racers,
second half of my year.
we really need like a better solution for gravel racers than pro cycling stats, because they never have the mountain bike races, then the mountain bike pages, they never have all the road or the gravel events. So a unified look at racing results would be useful. And then in your case, I figured, because Haley Smith, I assume, is like a rather common name. Is that why in all your handles you use your middle name as well to be more distinct?
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
discoverable?
exactly.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So search engine optimization, people would have called it 10 years ago. Now it's, I assume, Instagram optimization. Okay, that was Gravel Earth Series, but there is a bit of other racing, of course, going on besides these two big series. And one of the marquee gravel races with a lot of history unfolded just this weekend, namely SBT Steamboat Gravel. Was it your first SBT?
It was I lined up for SBT last year, but I was very sick, so I didn't finish. So I guess this was my first real SBT because I was involved in the race.
Yeah, because I checked, like, I think back until 22 on Athlinks, and I didn't find any results, but that explains then. Okay, so because what, of course, is very interesting to the folks out there is how did the new format work? And even though you don't have the before-after comparison from results, still, how was it? Like, for people who are not in the know, because of issues with the local farmers, we don't need to get into all the details, but they really had to change the format. So the Saturday, I believe, was the ride, where they did like the courses from as they used to do, but not as a race, but just quote unquote as rides, and pretty long rides even. But then the race for the pros, also for people who wanted to race, was on the Sunday. It was a loop. I think you did 3 laps, if I'm not mistaken, of this loop. It was like all closed roads. I think like the rolling enclosure thing that they did there. So I would hope a very safe racing experience as a benefit. But how was it? And was it a format that you found appealing? Was it a format that people talked negatively about? I heard some whispers that some people apparently didn't like it. Others were quite positive about it. What was your take and your experience at SBT?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think Keegan said it on Instagram, but it was very safe. I've never felt so safe in a gravel race before. Typically in North America, they're not marshaled. There's road crossings and stop signs, and it's kind of ruleless out there as much as they maybe say there are rules. So this felt very, very safe, which was nice. The terrain in Steamboat, I would more call it dirt. I wouldn't so much call it gravel. Like, it's dirt roads, so they're very smooth. It's like, for example, I rode a completely treadless tire. I rode a Maxxis Receptor up front and a Velocita in the rear, so it's like a slick tire.
Yeah.
It's very fast. I think we averaged, even with a little bit of fooling around with each other and not going as fast as we could all the time, we still averaged 33K an hour, so it's quite quick. I really enjoyed the circuit. I think there are a couple awesome things about it. Like, it is easier to do a rolling enclosure because you don't need to close 200 kilometers of road. You only need to close, whatever it is, 50, 60 for the lap. But it also made it easier for people to DNF. So once people were dropped, like, if you look at the results, I think only 15 of us actually finished, because once people were dropped by the group, which is something that you see in circuit road races too. There's a lot of DNFs when people are dropped from the lead bunch. But so I didn't love that. I think that part of the thing about gravel is that you're taking on a challenge that you commit to finishing unless something mechanical or health-wise happens to you.
Yeah.
but that's not the race organizer's fault. That's, decisions that are made by athletes in the moment, which is also a decision I've made. So I can't judge. I've definitely DNF'd races before. But the circuit format makes it easier to make those decisions. Yeah. But I really liked it. It was honestly, I finished sixth. I was dropped by the lead four, with probably 30K to go in the race. And they were just dangling there for the last, it was just so torturous, but it was probably the best performance not the best result I've ever had at a gravel race, but definitely the best performance. And especially at altitude. I am not an altitude racer. I can do, TT style efforts at altitude, but something that's really dynamic is very challenging for me. Anyway, so I'm really happy with my performance and I loved it.
In that sense, migration was probably good prep for you, right?
Definitely. And it was part of
at altitude.
Yeah, all of migration is over 2,000 meters. So it's pretty high. And I was in Kenya for a week and a half and then went to Steamboat, which is also over 2,000 meters. So between those two races, I've kind of got my 3 weeks of altitude that I'll only need to top up throughout the rest of the year. So that was part of why I continued on to Steamboat as well.
I saw some of the footage of Steamboat where it appeared like there were fans on the side of the road, but it was not like at a road race finale at this point. But I also assume it was mostly like in Steamboat in the city center. Or did you find more like crowd people watching along the track than you would usually do at gravel races?
No, so it's Steamboat. They actually encouraged people not to go out on course because they're trying to respect the local landowners and people that live there. So there were some people out on course, but primarily the people watching were the amateurs that were doing the circuit race that started an hour before us. So they're on the same circuit, but we didn't have a ton of overlap because they only did 2 laps and they started so much ahead of us. Yeah. So that actually worked very well. They nailed the timing of that. But yeah, there weren't very many spectators, but there was lots of, because it's a rolling enclosure, there's lots of great coverage because the follow vehicles can all be right there and you can take up the whole road. So there's lots of great imagery from the event. And I think they did a good job of trying to share the action live as much as they could. Yeah. But I would say less finish line spectators than usual at a gravel race.
Okay. Interesting, because one of the bets would have been that the people who do the ride on Saturday maybe stick around to watch the pro race, but then that didn't happen apparently, not to the maximum possible.
The problem is that the circuit race started about 25 miles out of town, so a 40-minute drive by car to the start and finish of the circuit race. Gotcha. From where the ride, the Saturday casual, it's not a casual, you know what I mean? The Saturday ride started from.
Yeah. So people then just don't move over there to do it, or only the hardcore fans do. And like from a vibes perspective out there, last year, I remember there were a lot of stories about nasty signs, anti-gravel racers and not so nice encounters people had with farmers and so on. Was that like better this year? Did you hear some of these stories and have some experiences yourself?
I didn't hear anything negative. I have not heard anything negative yet this year. I think the loop they chose avoided most of the ranches in Routt County, which is where the conflicts were happening last year. So I think they did a good job selecting a location. And yeah, I think if there was a lot of conflict, we would have heard about it by now. So no news is good news.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I'm happy for them. I mean, it's like one of the OG gravel races, still independent to this day. And like, yeah, it's probably a shame that the format had to change. Probably it's also good because we need, gravel is still so young and it's developing, and like course design, how to best run these races, how to make them safe. Something we talked about here extensively is the entire Clara Sophie Skofgard Hansen situation at Unbound. I mean, these are things that are happening. We had races where people actually died on the course. We had like accidents with cars, very sketchy situations. So yeah, as it becomes a bigger sport, it also, this aspect of racing needs to change. And I think loop races or circuit races are definitely one potential solution.
Mm-hmm. And I also think it's really cool. Like, some people complained that they didn't like the course. No one complained to me. I've just heard through the grapevine that people complain. But one of the beautiful things about gravel racing, that I've actually studied this in my academic life, so we can say this like with data, is that gravel is appealing because it's not formulaic. Every event can be so different, and there's a very minimal set of guidelines from the UCI about how the event has to happen, what your bike has to look like, all of these different things. And so the more events that we can have that remain independent and that do these figure out unique ways of working with their local space and their local community to make them happen, the more personality we're going to have across events, the more variety, the more exciting it's going to be to line up every weekend. Like, if we had a different race experience at every single race, which we do at most events kind of outside of Lifetime, they're all very different. Yeah. I would line up every weekend. It would be I would love it. So I really enjoyed Steamboat because it was very different. It was an incredibly unique experience from all the other races that we line up for. And that alone, I think, will make sure that it survives because it's just a novel experience.
Tell me more about like the academic history on what you did there. I somewhere in the back of my mind, but I might also be confusing you. I maybe heard you talk on a different podcast, talk about it a long time ago, but tell me, what was that?
Yeah. So in my master's degree, I study sports psychology, but I look more at the, not so much at the granular individual level of applied sports psychology. I more research kind of social environments and the dynamics of experiences within sport. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things I did in my master's was look at, we facetiously researched the spirit of gravel, but what we were really looking at was like, why is this sport growing? Why do people like it? What is it? Like, how could we even define gravel cycling? And what is kind of the culture around the sport? Yeah. And we spoke to, it was more like a pilot study because we couldn't find any research on gravel that existed.
And important in that context, when did you do the research and data collection for this?
2022 to 2023, I think. Yeah. The post-COVID years really bleed together, but it was a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And anyways, we found that basically what people come to gravel for is a sense of freedom, a sense of challenge, and a sense of connection. So they want this freedom of choosing, not being restricted by UCI rules or like formulaic experiences. They want the freedom to explore wide open spaces, explore themselves, try new things. They want a sense of challenge. So they want something that is big and intimidating but also tailorable to their circumstances. So events that have a 100, a 200, and a 50 mile, those are the most popular events because they give people the choice to select their own adventure. And then this sense of connection. So something that's really unique about gravel compared to other disciplines is that you really integrate with other people. So you're connected to, your race competitors, but you're also connected to the pros and the amateurs are connected. The different genders are connected. More genders are represented or given the opportunity to participate. And then you're also this sort of connection to nature and to equipment and to self. So there's a lot of different ways of looking at it, but I won't nerd out too much right now because I'm sure most people are not that interested in this. But
no, please.
Gravel's a really interesting social phenomenon.
No, it is. And actually, like, I wrote a piece, and it's funny that it comes up with you again because it already came up when I talked to Lukas. So for the listener, it's the second time now we get into this discussion. But I think it's also highly relevant. So either you switch off the podcast or you just stay on and you nerd out with us. But I actually wrote this piece on Escape Collective where I first compared the attractiveness of the sport itself to road racing. And my thesis, and it kind of checks out with your data. I'd be curious to get your master thesis if you're able to share it actually. But it was like, look, like when road racing boomed, the roads were much emptier than they nowadays are, and traveling was a new development. Like only the rich people used to travel, and then in the 60s or early 20th century through mid 20th century, when it became really a big event, like with the Tour de France and so on, it was really driven also by travel per se. But nowadays traveling has changed, and what people aspire to has changed, and nature, going back outdoors, that is what our urban, always on, digitally connected folks, what we like to do, to switch off. And gravel is, in my mind, very perfectly aligned with this. And now the question becomes, like, how can you create the what I dubbed the attractive package for the sport, right? And of course, there are people out there who don't want gravel to be a spectator sport and just keep it grassroots. And I think the fact that it is grassroots, that it grew relatively organically, is important for the sport, and all the attributes that people like in it is great. It's so great nowadays. That's what Lukas and I started discussing, is like how good it is for gravel to not be owned by the UCI. The UCI plays a role, and they have their World Series. And that is nice. But even so if the UCI would start implementing all their rules that they like on the road so much, I mean, now we talk about super wide handlebars that people have to run, wide handlebars, especially for women or small men, and we talk about gear restrictions and all this, and that it makes racing probably not more secure as they want to, but definitely it stifles innovation for all the manufacturers of bikes, of gear. And in gravel, I have the feeling the tinkering, the tech part is also something that really is interesting to the audience, and we have it all in this space. And like, if the UCI wants to regulate it, people are still going to do Lifetime. They are still going to do the Gravel Earth series, where the UCI isn't around, and that is really good for innovation and really good for the format, and also from the media production side, right? I think between the three big series, we know who is doing the worst job, and then the best job. I know Gravel Earth is investing heavily in the media and the presentation of it, as is Lifetime. So that is really, really cool to see. And it has this grassroots foundation where people like it a lot for the reasons you lined out. And let's see where it can go now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that. It is right in line with what we were looking at. It sounds like your thoughts were right up the same alley, which is great, because that confirms that the way that we interpreted our participants' experiences is, it has value. But yeah, our thesis was kind of that, like, we identified those three reasons for coming to gravel, but then we kind of defined the spirit of gravel, and we said that the spirit of gravel is that it's a chameleon. It can be whatever it needs to be for whoever wants to do it.
Yeah.
And if we were to give a single governing body total control, that would kill the spirit of gravel. But because that hasn't happened yet, the spirit of gravel is alive and well, because all of these wonderful, different, varied events still exist.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, that is like, it starts with what type of courses are classified as gravel. It goes down to who can participate in these events. And I had the actual Holy Spirit of gravel, so the admin of the corresponding meme account on here after Unbound and her Unbound experience, and it was not only really cool to talk about what we dubbed the normie coded experience out there at Unbound, but also like what is the state of the spirit, and is it still alive? And I think it pretty much is so. And it's something, for instance, in Europe, some of the organizers, it is very, the audience there feels very road like, and the vibe there is road like. And then there are other events. Sometimes I think in North America you have not the distinction we tend to have here between races and events. Most things are races, but people just do it as an event, many of the participants. And here we tend to have more events than actual races because it's harder to put on an official race, and then it becomes more costly and so on for security standard reasons and so on and so forth. So we have more of these participatory events. And there definitely it's like some people still do them fast, obviously, and others do them chill. And there we definitely have what we see in pictures from Unbound and so on, where everybody is racing and lining up. And I think it's really important for a sport to have this vibe.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like we could talk about this for a long time. I'm very fascinated by this stuff, but.
Yeah, definitely. So if you can please share your master thesis so I can give it a read, I'd be super excited. Let's finish on that note if you still have a minute, because when I researched this, something that I wasn't aware of, I believe, because I didn't see it or I blacked it out. At Unbound, you were for a moment in the group with Carolina Migon, Cecily Decker, and Lauren Stevens. Of course, the final winner came from this group in Caro. But you, and I read this in your Instagram post, you described how you were in a super early break, I believe after 30K, you went out in the front, and then you described how, you did ride with them, but that was probably overly ambitious at this point in time. For how long were you in this group, actually?
Yeah, so I went off the front. There was one girl way off the front, and then I went 30 kilometers into the race, and I stayed off the front until after Divide Road. So that's probably, I was off the front for a couple hours, I think. And the goal was to try to be far enough ahead that I made it through all the carnage, because that's where all the technical stuff at Unbound is, and there's always crashes. So I wanted to get ahead of that. And then I was hoping that I would get caught by a selection that we would then work together. But I was caught by too small of a selection. So it was the three of them, and it was right after Divide Road, and where they caught me was quite a challenging part. In analyzing Caro's file, I now can see that when they caught me was the hardest 5 minutes of her race. Oh. So at the time when they caught me, I was already hurt. I was hurting already just from being off the front for that long by myself, pretty much. And then I wasn't very confident, and I was just waiting to get dropped, which is not a very good mindset to race in. You're never going to race your strongest. But I was with them, the three of them, for about, I think I hit a lap when they caught me, and then a lap when I got dropped on my head unit. But I think it was either 30 or 40 minutes I was with them. And then I got caught by the main peloton after the first aid. So at about 118 kilometers into the race, I think. And at that point I was cooked. I was done.
But I mean, you still had a pretty good result. No, you finished 11th, I think.
No, I think I was in the 20s. I actually don't know where I finished. It wasn't a fantastic day for me. But I tried something new. And it didn't work out.
No, you're right. Or like what I looked at some data that is confusing, because if you go to the lifetime page, look, second time in this episode that we have confusing data, but I looked at if you go in the data for all the lifetime riders, and you were then 11th out of the lifetime competitors at Unbound, that is the thing that I remember, because I made this. I at one point I wrote something for my newsletter, and I checked these numbers because I wanted to find something out for a comparison I do between lifetime and all the other non-lifetime competitors, and then I realized, and I forgot apparently, that is just lifetime rankings they show on this specific page they have. Results in gravel, finding them is still not so easy in 2025 as you would expect and hope it to be.
Yeah. But honestly, I find that really interesting, because for me, I don't often look at the results from a race I did. I don't really like I care, but I don't need a results sheet to tell me how the day went. Anyway, so like I find it interesting that it's almost deliberately difficult sometimes to find the results because it's not a focus of the event. Another sort of.
I mean, it has
anyways.
it has gotten better a bit. I feel like, especially with like Lifetime and most gravel earth races, but not necessarily, for instance, on the websites. These are very slow to update. I mean, most link to Athlinks or whatever service they use for this tracking. So if you are familiar with using those, and I mean, the big races I follow while I refresh this page a lot because I want to see what time gaps are. So that's not your default fan experience, I would assume. But yeah, that works. And then I mean, I'm sorry that I have to say it, but for UCI stuff, it's still very hard to find. And sometimes you end up in PDFs that open up, and then you have like a PDF file to find results. That is crazy to me. But yeah, thanks to these other services, it's a bit better. And Pro Cycling Stats has gravel results since I believe this season. They really add them also to rider profiles, and that mostly works. But as we found out, not always, especially if you have a common name. So that is maybe the little issue there. But that made it easier because they have a lot of the races, like all Gravel Earth stuff, the Lifetime stuff, the UCI stuff, and even some like SBT results are now in the profile on Pro Cycling Stats. And we're getting there. Cool. So anything else that we didn't touch upon that you thought after your experience at Migration or the other races we still should address?
No, I don't think so. I just think if someone's listening to this and they have ambitions to do Migration, you have all the encouragement from me. It was, like I said, one of the best events I've ever done, and I'll remember it for the rest of my life. So don't wait, do it.
Lovely. So where can people find you and follow you?
Primarily Instagram is the only platform that I have the energy to keep up with. So my handle on there is Haley Hunter Smith.
Lovely. We will make sure to put it in the show notes. Thanks a lot for taking the time for chatting with me here, and have a good remainder of the season.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation.